What's up, guys? Look, welcome back to the channel. This week we're gonna have some fun. I know we're inside, we're not on the water, but you know what, that's what happens these days. You don't get to, sometimes just like y'all, we don't get to spend as much time on the water as we want to also. But look, I noticed this morning on the way to work for the first time all year, I got to looking and I noticed, like, I see the Bradford pear tree starting to bloom a little. I look on the oak trees, they got little buds on them, and there's a faint hint of yellow in some of them early pine trees. So y'all know what time it is. It's springtime. It's the best time for fishing, in my opinion. So I wanted to go through what I like to use to catch bass during the springtime. So I got 4 or 5 rods with me. We're gonna go through kind of what I prefer to do. Hopefully give you guys some ideas. Maybe there's some stuff you can tell me. So if you have something that you like to do that we don't cover, drop it down below. Because look, I'm all ears. I started out in life early fishing a lot. Then I kind of got pulled to the duck hunting deal, having to work, life gets in the way. And now I'm back into, obviously I still duck hunt a ton. But I'm fishing more and more these days. So that's a cool thing. It's, it's always fun to see life go full circle, but fishing is kind of what I do for a hobby now. So I'm just going to let y'all know what works for me, and we'll go from there. And anything you guys want to see, drop down below too. But let's start off with probably my number one. Try not to break this stuff. Go to bait, set up everything for springtime bass fishing. It gets a lot of press because it catches a lot of fish, and for me it's no different, and that is a generic term, vibrating jig. For me, I prefer a chatterbait. I've tried other ones, and for whatever reason, my opinion, this guy catches more. No, I'm not sponsored by Z-Man. No, this is not a way to get sponsored by Z-Man. I'm just telling you what I use. So as y'all know, this guy right here, vibrating jig, has probably won more money than any other bass bait for the past 2 or 3 years, I would imagine. So if it's good enough for those guys to use, guess what? It's good enough for me to use too. So early in the year, I prefer to use something a little darker if the water's not too bad stained. So like this one right here is called Bruised Green Pumpkin. So it's green pumpkin, got a little blue on top of it. I have it paired with a Zoom Z-Crawl Junior trailer on it. I like using a little bit bulkier trailer for the spring because generally I'm fishing really shallow, like super shallow, throwing up at cypress trees and little grass clumps and things like that. And the bigger, bulkier trailer you put on there, it provides more lift, more buoyancy, so you can fish it a lot shallower without necessarily having to burn it. When I throw a chatterbait, vibrating jig, whatever you want to call them, I throw it on 17-pound fluorocarbon. It's 17-pound vicious fluorocarbon. This is a H2O Express TAC 40 reel in a 7-to-1 ratio, so it's a little fast, but I can hold my rod tip up and reel real slow and keep it right up under the surface of the water. And then this is paired with H2O Express Ethos HD 7-foot medium heavy rod. Pretty basic setup. It's got a fast tip on it, so that thing really so you feel everything while you're reeling it. Now, sometimes these fish kind of get in a little funk this time of year. Some days they'll want a vibrating jig where it's really thumping, and then other days they want something a little more subtle. So I will always also have on a swim jig. Where's he at? He's right here. This is a swim jig, so you're basically doing the same thing with it you do with a vibrating jig. You're gonna fish it real shallow, up around grass, trees, whatever. You notice I'm sticking with this green pumpkin color. This one has got a swim bait trailer on it, so it gives it a little more boom, 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 side to side action. When you see it, it kind of goes real hard side to side. And then I throw it on straight braid. So, because I'm going to be fishing it, and I need to, generally when these fish bite these things, they hit it with a lot of authority, and they'll run, dump, slack. So you need zero stretch in your line, which is why you'll see me using straight braid or fluorocarbon with all of these. I love the green pumpkin, mimics a bluegill, so those overachieving bluegill that get up there early, a bass, big fat bass is gonna find it hard to say no to that. I've got it on an Ethos HD reel, 30-pound braid, and this is the 8-to-1 that they make in it. So a lot faster reel to recover that line like I was talking about. And this one is actually on a Quantum Smoke medium heavy. I have a lot of different brands of rods. I'm not a purist by any stretch of the imagination. So if I find one I like, I turn it into functionality for me. So really good setup. It's a Smoke S3 rod, medium heavy, 7 foot. So those two, if you like fishing jigs, vibrating jigs, that kind of stuff, up dirt shallow, they've always done really well for me. Another one that if you ask anybody that knows me, what's one bait that I'm not going to leave home without, that would be a square bill crankbait. This time of year, during the hot summer, during the fall, doesn't matter. I will always have a square bill crankbait tied on. So this one right here is a Bill Lewis SB57. It is it's designed by my buddy Mark Daniels Jr. So that's a cool thing. Get to support my buddy. But there's like different situations where I throw a square bill, and different brands of square bills at that. So when the water warms up pretty good, I'll switch over to this guy because he's a lot harder knocking, makes a lot more racket, like fish are really generally more aggressive. So that's where we're getting at right now. Prior to this though, I use, and you'll see I've got 2 boxes slammed full of square bills, so I love them. Prior to this, when the water's still a little bit cooler and before it gets super hot, H2O Express crankbaits. They're the Academy private label. They are the best bang for your buck in a square bill crankbait. Early spring when the water's just warming up and fish are getting up there, this guy right here, fantastic. Bright red, looks like a crawfish. As we progress and it goes, then I switch to either that chartreuse, which H2O makes a chartreuse one with a black back, or this guy right here, Diamond Dust. Fantastic square bill crankbaits. They catch a lot of fish. They've caught a lot of fish. They're easy to fish. They don't get hung up a whole lot. If you get one hung up, generally that's your fault, not the crankbait's fault. So, and in this box, Bill Lewis makes a ton of different options in the square bill. My favorite one is that black and chartreuse. It catches fish down here in Louisiana all the time. But if you want to fish this guy around some really muddy water, this early springtime, this guy right here is fantastic. And if it's really dingy, this guy, I think it's called Mustard Crawl maybe, bright orange, yellow, really stands out. Great little fish catcher. Then as the year goes on, same deal, switch to more shad colors. This guy does really good. Later in the year you go, they've got another that's just kind of a generic shad. They got a blueback herring, basically. And there's a bunch of different colors of reds and oranges in these crawfish colors. I mainly use the 2, but there's a bunch of different colors. If the water's a little clearer, but they're still on crawfish, you can use this one. It's a little more subtle orange, but anyway, you get the drift. Match your bait to the water clarity. When you're using crankbaits, my opinion, if it's super muddy, the brighter orange and red you can go, the better. As the water gets clear, swap to a little more subdued color, But anyway, so that's square bill crankbaits. I throw it on my buddy Jacob Wheeler's medium heavy cranking rod. It's a 7-foot 2-inch. I throw it on 10-pound vicious fluorocarbon, and this is an Ethos HD reel in the 6 to 1 gear ratio, so a little bit slower, but I like that so I can fish my crankbait where I feel like I'm reeling at a good steady speed and I'm not just burning it through there. It's just a nice steady retrieve. You can go higher gear ratio, but then you got to like force yourself to slow down. And cranking, I just like to be at a good steady pace. So that's why I use a little bit slower gear ratio there. And then finally, my last 2 are kind of almost one and the same. It just depends on what's going on. But one is a jig and the other one is a Texas Rig Soft Plastic. So if I can see the fish sitting up on the bed or something like that, which I try not to do if at all possible, I'm gonna use a Texas Rig Soft Plastic. So I like using that over a jig. It's a little more subtle presentation. It falls a little slower a lot of times because I use a pretty light sinker this time of year. I use a 3/8 ounce. And so it just kind of falls, and it'll really, when you pick it up, it'll float there a little bit more and aggravate that fish into biting if you need to get him to bite. If I can't see the bottom, or I can't see the bed, but I think they're on trees, then a lot of times I'll flip a jig. I'm kind of old school in that regard, where I love flipping a jig. This one right here is a black and purple jig. I like that color combination. There's a lot of people that do, a lot of people that don't. Whatever, to each their own on that. Black and purple, black and blue, green pumpkin. Even this time of year, something with a little orange in it, look like a crawfish. There's, as you can tell, I'm kind of a jig fanatic. I'll show you. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll show you my flipping jig box. And yeah, I got a little bit of a problem. But if I see something I think's kind of cool, I'll buy it. You know, it ain't no big deal. But those are all flipping jigs. They're various assorted sizes. Some of them are smaller, some of them bigger. But most of the time I use about a 1/2 ounce. I find a 1/2 ounce is easy for me to handle. I can flip it up under a tree. It'll skip real good. So that's why I do it. Again, I'm not a professional. I know better than to act like I am. This is just the stuff that works for me. Both of these are on a heavy action rod. This one is on a 7.6, my Texas rig. That's my buddy Jacob Wheeler's designed. Again, it's on a super high speed reel. It's like 8-to-3-to-1 Quantum Smoke. And then this one is on a 7.4 heavy. I like a little bit shorter on the jig because I can skip, me personally, for whatever reason, I skip a little bit better with a shorter jig. Texas rig, this guy, I'm most likely not having to skip it a whole lot. So if I get into where like the water's up and the limbs are really around the trees, again, I can't see the fish, so I'm gonna fish a jig so I can skip it. And I can skip better with just a little bit shorter rod than I can a longer rod. You know, match where you're at in the country, your conditions. There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of resources out there written by guys that are much more knowledgeable than me, but I like to tell you what we do. I like to give you an idea of how, in my mind, ordinary people go fishing, right? I mean, I'm just another guy. I got an 18-foot aluminum boat with a 70 on it. So I'm just like a lot of you guys out there. You know, I don't need a big glass boat fishing where I fish. I fish little rivers, I fish little cypress lakes, little oxbow lakes. I like fishing little tight spots, but that's what I enjoy doing. I love target fishing. I love being able to throw at something. And just kind of hoping that a fish is there. Use your clues, you look around. But that's what works for me. So these 5 rods are always on the deck of my boat during the springtime. And generally speaking, one of them or 2 of them will be really good any given day you're out on the water. But the other reason I use them, I have a lot of confidence in all of these. But that's it, guys. I mean, just something really simple as you're getting ready. A lot of people, spring hadn't sprung yet. As spring is starting to move up, we're going to hopefully get out this weekend. Got some buddies coming in town, so we're going to get back on them fire ponds that y'all have seen. We're going to go have some fun, have some goofy challenges, I'm sure, if Jacob Wheeler has anything to do with it. So we're going to go have some fun. I've got all my stuff rigged and ready to go. These will be the 5 rods that I show up there with. But just biggest deal, get out there, go learn. If you have any ideas, any kind of videos, if you like this video, like it. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down. I'm cool. It doesn't matter to me. We want to know what we can do to help make your fishing better. You know, any way we can help you guys, that's what we're here to do. So like, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know what we're after and what you guys want to see. And we'll catch you out there on the water.